those atrocities would bear minimal emotional impact on the soldier. How does this affect the mental health of those who have to do these things, and how do we need to move forward to make sure that suicide attempts don't occur and that post-traumatic stress syndrome is minimized, and that we can really help with the psychology and the psychological needs of our veterans? Because all of you talked about, and we saw and we witnessed on the slides, this dehumanization process in action, and that's part of war. And I don't know how they train our young men and women for this, but that's what occurs. And so we have to figure this out and what we can do to help when you come home.
Yes, Congressman. Something that was brought up to me by a very good friend of mine sitting behind me, Mathis Giroux, just mentioned maybe 2 weeks ago, and it was something I never thought about, was that every enlistee spends a week of basic training, or at least a few days, doing bayonet training. And we are putting a bayonet, a knife, on the end of a rifle, and we repeatedly stab a dummy that looks like a human being and yell "kill" with every movement.
This is part of your training?
Yes. That is the basis of the military. On a broad scale, that is the basis of and the first step to dehumanization towards the enemy, and the acceptance to kill is there's a very popular thing that the drill sergeants require us to say. And I remember the first time I heard it, I refused to say it, and it wasn't because I didn't want to be a soldier. It was because I thought it was weird. And the response to the question, soldiers, what makes the green grass grow? And the response is blood, 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 drill sergeant. So I would like to allow Jeffrey to go on how we can move past that.
You asked in your question, Congresswoman, what can you do to move forward with veterans coming home with scars that can't be seen by the eye, ones of mental wounds? Well, in Iraq Veterans Against the War, we didn't wait for the VA. We started a counseling group called Homefront Battle Buddies. In the Washington, D.C. chapter, which I'm the president of, we meet every Sunday at the Washington, D.C. office, our home, to meet for our Homefront Battle Buddies. That program is expanding nationally. We in Iraq Veterans Against the War have a saying that we're not going to wait for politicians to end a war. We end the war every day in what we do. We also do the same when it comes to our other goals, including taking care of veterans. We've started counseling groups. But what you can do starts simply with getting more Iraq veterans into college with the GI Bill. Even myself, with an honorable discharge and 9 years of service, am not eligible under the current GI Bill for any benefits. The GI Bill is the start, but also making sure that the Veterans Administration is fully funded, making sure that there is no waiting list for PTSD care. We have seen multiple suicides this year alone on veterans who have been waiting on a waiting list to get mental health care at a VA. This is inexcusable. There should never be a waiting list for any veteran, especially not one so young coming home from Iraq, when they ask for mental health care. These are the types of things that while we move forward in Iraq Veterans Against the War, the Congress can certainly move more funding into the VA, more funding into our veterans as they come home and out of the occupation. Thank you.
Well, I'll be the final. I'm the cleanup batter for this panel. You know, you talk about the apathy of the American people. I want to tell you, I believe the American people are totally with you. I believe it with all my heart. I mean, when I first introduced legislation to bring our troops home, I was really criminalized around the country. When Barbara Lee voted against the president's power in the first place, she was a villain, to say the least, but she wasn't. She was the one right person in the House of Representatives. But I think what the people of this country, they feel shame for how we treated the Vietnam veterans, as we should feel shame. But the apathy that's there, knowing they support you but not knowing what to do, belongs here in the House of Representatives. We are the ones that get hired, elected, to lead the way on how to bring our troops home, and we know how to do it, but we want the rest of the Congress to catch on. And we are the ones who have to help ensure that your benefits are intact, that your life gets back together. And I can tell you that this GI Bill, we do this day in and day out. There's Marcy Captor from Ohio. She's here now. But the three of us, the four of us, and Sheila Jackson Lee was here, we never stop working on these issues. But I learned something today. I mean, I love it that you've brought so much to us. The light bulb went on, we can pass this GI Bill, and there's going to be a whole bunch of action to keep people out of it so they won't get coverage. Yeah. Well, you've got the front here. We're on to it. So we're going to fix that for you. But my question for you, if you can answer this, how do you individually deal with your own grief? I love it that you talk about what the Vietnam's against the veterans against the Iraq, veterans and all that are doing. But what do you do individually? What is the one thing that you do, Jason?
Thank you, Congressman, for your question. Well, let me say that when I first exited the Marine Corps, I sought PTSD counseling at the VA hospital in Long Beach, California. I had sessions there with a psychology intern from September till December of 2006. She then told me that my psychology sessions were going to be terminated because she was moving to a different ward of the psychology unit there at the hospital where she would work with vets who have terminal illnesses, because they rotated interns throughout every department in the VA to get them the breadth of experience. I then submitted a letter to my congressman, the Honorable Ed Royce, to stop my termination. He then did, or whatever happened, my sessions were allowed to continue. In any event, she eventually left her internship, and I moved to a program called the Soldiers Project that works in the Los Angeles area. And it's basically a group of PhDs in psychology who provide their services to veterans for free. And so that's what I did. And I guess the other thing really is that I serve in Iraq Veterans Against the War, and I try to right as much as I can the wrongs that I've made. And that would be the best answer I could give you.
Scott?
Thank you, ma'am. For me, I think being involved in IVAW has been very important. I think I have felt an obligation to do something to try to make up for the moral debt I think that I've personally incurred. Beyond that, for me, I think I am actually going to school, so academics has played a big part in my getting over it, and I'm actually doing research into various parts of Army life and moral psychology and stuff like that, so that's also been very helpful. Thank you.
Well, as most of you have seen me in these halls, it's usually in one of these black t-shirts. And you ask, what do I do to recover? I get to wake up every morning, put on that black t-shirt, and work to bring the troops home and take care of them when they get home and make sure that Iraqis receive reparations. That is what keeps me going. It gets my head off the pillow every morning and makes sure that when it goes down there very late at night for the couple hours of rest that I get to, as one of my heroes, Harry Chapin, said, sleep the sleep of the just, because what we do every day in Iraq Veterans Against the War keeps me going. Thank you.
Thank you. Christopher?
After being removed from the Army involuntarily, I received very little help getting into the VA. I received no training on how to collect compensation, which I believe that I'm going to be entitled to. And I didn't contact the VA for a couple months until I fell into a pit of depression. And I went online, filed for compensation back in October, and I haven't seen a response other than we're waiting on your paperwork to go through. The VA has gotten my paperwork, but it's been 7 months now, and I haven't gotten anything. Because there's a 400,000 claim backup at the VA right now, and hopefully I'm getting close to the end of that. But I drank and I self-medicated for a very long time until I spent almost every dime that I came out of the Army with, which was about $20,000. And it wasn't until February of this year when I was contacted and asked by the IVAW to come speak at Winter Soldier that I had ever told my story to anyone. Even my family and my closest friends didn't know the more graphic details of what I had been through. And I have used telling my story as a vent, a way to recover. But again, there are tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of soldiers and Marines who are still self-medicating, and I haven't found that outlet the way that I have.